What's with all the band shirts? It's a question I get all the time. Hello there, Thak from Thak Ironworks. Today we're going to be doing something very different, a video talking about my top 20 favorite bands, which you will see represented on the shirts that I wear in these videos. So I'm assuming this is going to be of limited interest only to a select few. So if this is not your cup of tea, then you can just join us on the next video. We got some other cool stuff coming up. But for you guys who are into the whole heavy metal thing and what my musical tastes are and what that all represents to me, then join me for this. So let's get started. Let's just dive right into the top 20. We'll start with number 20, which is the band Except, a German band. I like a lot of the German bands and the German sound, kraut rock or kraut metal, they call it. Always liked Except. Scorpions, I think, is a great band, and they do the heavy and just the lighter rock stuff. Also like Crocus. I think they're technically Swiss, but I'd lump them in with the German. And of course, Rammstein and Thrashwise Sodom, I think, is a great German band. Anyway, Except, I like them. Udo got a great growly voice and just really like their approach. I like them in the early 80s. They were speed metal, I guess you would call, and they were pre-thrash, but like Balls to the Wall, great album, great song. Breaker and Restless and Wild. I think they were great hard rock metal style albums. So there we go. 19, System of a Down. I remember the first time I heard them, and it was there's only a few bands, a handful of them, that I remember the first time hearing them and just being like startled or blown away. Metallica, AC/DC, Tool, and Rage Against the Machine. I can remember where I was and just being like awestruck at what I was hearing, something I'd never really heard before. But anyway, System, very bizarre, and great vocalists. I love the way they have the two vocalists, and Serge and his opera background. I think that's what he had. But anyway, really brought something pretty incredible to the table. But the guitar work and the drums are no slouch either. Really excellent. And I like the lyrics, social commentary, scathing critique of our present world, or what it was 25 years ago anyway. But with a touch of humor. And I just, great band, very unique, really love them, and just always thought they were a lot of fun to listen to. One more thing. They are the first of the Rick Rubin productions, where I think he's a magic man and has been able to, some of my favorite artists and albums always seem to have Rick Rubin in the background. So these are the first guys. Number 18, Megadeth. First of the big four of the thrash guys that are in my top 20. Dave, maybe not the greatest lyricist or greatest vocalist of all time, but I do like the way he kind of spits out his social commentary, his political views, which seem sometimes controversial and sometimes fairly interesting. But as a lyricist, I think he's great, and they are a guitar-driven band. He is a great guitarist and has had a number of great guitarists in the band, but just all in all, a great catalog of work, very consistent throughout the years as far as some pretty compelling stuff. I'm a big fan of the early stuff. The first 3-4 albums really did it for me. Dark Throne, first of the black metal bands in my top 20 that I'm going to talk about, and I would say they are your basically they are your the standard for black metal, Norwegian black metal, and been around for a long time and came out with some really good albums. And they just kind of, to me, they are that sound with the kind of buzzy guitars, that repetitive drum beat and stuff like that, and just the screechy vocals. I like, vocal-wise, I like the black metal vocals. I'm fine with that. I'm less a fan of the Cookie Monster vocals of death metal, and you're not really going to see any so-called death metal in my collection here, and I think it is really the vocals that turn me off of that. Anyway, Fenriz, I think he's a great spokesman for the metal genre in totally. I've watched his video on his breakdown on the evolution of metal. I think he's a very articulate guy, and I think he is a great spokesman for the whole Norwegian scene, which has um, a lot of controversial background with the church burnings and the murder and stuff like that. Like when you get into the extreme musics, I find there's different viewpoints, and as you get out to the farthest extremes, you get people with viewpoints that maybe not something that you want to emulate in your own life, but at the same time, the music might still be good. Having said that, not really a fan of mayhem. And I'm not really into, let's say, really pro-Nazi stuff. I've heard some of it, and it's just like maybe the whole Nazi thing is a turn off that I don't bother listening to it. But it's the same thing with the Christian metal and stuff like that. It's usually when something has too hard of an agenda, it compromises the actual music itself. So I don't know. That's just my theory on it. I kind of live and let live, and I'm open to hear different things, and I don't have to agree with the lifestyle of every artist that I come across. But the same token, I'm not looking for things that are totally against my viewpoint in life. I don't even know what number we're on here. Number 16, Rage Against the Machine, and I don't even currently have a Rage shirt. I don't think it's even on my quilt of memories here. So I need to get myself a Rage Against the Machine shirt. They are a very unique band, and they were one of the bands that I remember the first time hearing them, and I liked them right away. And I just, when they came out, that whole fusion of metal with hip hop, they did it better than anyone. Like I like Beastie Boys, I like Cypress Hill, Body Count, stuff like that. But nobody did it quite like Rage, and I think it has a lot to do with Tom Morello. He's just a scientist with the guitar. I think Zach was a great frontman, the way he could just rap out the lyrics, but just with such conviction, and they're just the social message that they had, and they were an aptly named band, Rage Against the Machine, and kind of bringing awareness to a lot of issues. But I just thought I loved the intensity, and it's just a great band. Number 15, Anvil. Once again, don't have a T-shirt. They're on the quilt there. Anvil was a band when I was just a little wee tyke. They're a Canadian band and local, so I heard them a lot when I was still in grade school, and just kind of blew me away. They were a force to be reckoned with back in the early 80s, pre-thrash, and they inspired a lot of the big thrash guys. And I think their first 3 albums were great. After that, everything just kind of fizzled out. That could have had something to do with production, or they just, I don't know, lost their way. Watch the documentary. You've probably all seen that if you're a hardcore metalhead, but I found that very entertaining. They had some great ideas as far as the speed metal movement. I guess that's what we would classify them. And I think their first 3 albums were really hard hitting. The first one, Hard and Heavy, was more of a hard rock, and then I think it went Metal on Metal, and then Forged in Fire. But I just think that they really were cooking at that point, and some great songs. Lips, great guitar player, and he was a great vocalist too. I just seen him a couple months ago, and he's in his late 60s now. Voice is shot, so he kind of lost his impact with that, but still an awesome guitar player. Another note, speaking of Ontario or Canadian bands that influenced me early on, Exciter was another one of the speed metal genre that didn't make my top 20, but I lumped them in with Anvil of that era. And I really enjoy the album Long Live the Loud. I think that's one specifically that I think they had a great sound, and I think they're still around. I haven't actually ever seen them live. All right, we're at, I don't know what we're at, 14? 14, Sepultura. And I was looking for my other Sepultura shirt, but it must be in the laundry or something like that. I found this one. So, Sepultura, very heavy band, Brazilian. They had that Brazilian metal scene thing going on, and these guys go way back. And I think they started out with a lot of different influences and kind of made it their own. And I know there was a number of bands in Brazil at that time kind of creating their own music scene. But by far, Sepultura was the one that really, they've gone on and still around. And I like Max, his brother, what, Igor. Um, I don't think they're in the band anymore. I know Max is, and I think Igor left, and they've gone on and done other stuff, the Calvarius Conspiracy and what Soulfly, that sort of thing. I like anything that Max does, but Sepultura, first several albums really good. I really liked Beneath the Remains. Just going ahead to Roots, that's a great one. I just others escape me right off the top of my head now. Whatever AD. Anyway, great bands, and are great band, and just they seem to just kind of fuse together a whole bunch of different type of genres, like it's everything from black metal to death metal to thrash and just hard rock, and great band. Going through the pile, I noticed I did have the Sepultura shirt that I wanted there. Beneath the Remains. I think this is a great shirt. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so 13, Pantera. Don't have a shirt. That shirt is now part of the quilt there. What can you say about Pantera? They saved the 90s for us. When heavy metal and heavy music in general went through kind of a dark phase there, they were kind of the flag bearer that kept it all alive. I guess like they go way back into the 80s, and they were like a hair metal band, the Paul brothers. And then when they got Phil in with those vocals and they changed their musical direction, I think Cowboys to Hell, and revolutionary. So I think it all hinges on the fact that they're great musicians, and Dimebag and his guitar, just really solid guitar work that just carries the whole thing. And then Phil, probably one of my favorite vocalists, or frontman, I should say. I don't think his voice is the greatest in the world, but he's got a great range, and he can do the pleasant stuff, and he can also do some pretty growly lyrics. But I just find him as a frontman on stage to be very compelling and entertaining. I just enjoy them a lot. They put out a series of albums through the 90s, and just each one was so intense. And here we are today. They've got that tribute band now that with Zakk Wylde. I've seen them, and Phil, his voice is still good. So I wish them well. Dio, Ronnie James Dio. What a vocalist. What a gentleman. He had such a commanding presence, and just a great voice. And he went through a bunch of different bands, and he was there like before the whole metal scene even happened. He was a musician in the 60s, and then all the way through the 70s, and then really hit his stride when he started fronting for Black Sabbath. And those two albums that he did with them, I think, are just gold. I love that. Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell. Just the mystery and mystique that he brought to Black Sabbath with Tony Iommi's guitar work and just the rest of the guys. I just think that was a really magical combination. It worked so well. And nothing to take away from early Sabbath, but I think that was a very unique and special combination of musicians there. But Ronnie went on then and did Dio for several albums. Before that, before Black Sabbath, he was in Rainbow and did really good there, and they shit-canned him because they wanted a more commercial sound, and I think it was just a travesty. The stuff he did with Rainbow, I think, was really good. But jumping ahead to Dio, then, his final band, his self-titled band he came out with, Holy Diver, and that was the new wave of British heavy metal, I guess. That was in the early 80s. Can't remember when that one came out, like 81, 82, something like that. And just a powerful album, really good. And then followed it up with Last in Line, which is what this shirt is based on. That was a great album. Then from there, he got a little bit too much into unicorns and rainbows and dragons and that sort of thing, and it got a little bit power metal-ish for me. But can't take away from just the majesty of that guy's voice. I just think he's one of the greatest vocalists of all time. Number 11, Tool. What can you say about Tool? They are the musicians band. I always run into musicians, and they're always seem to be huge Tool fans, or have great respect for them. And it's such a different sound, and I don't know. They seem to have this aura around them that people really kind of worship them, and just different than any other band that I've ever known. I find their music, being a non-musician, very structural. Architectural would even be a word that I would use, but I just think it's really compelling stuff. And I just like all their albums, like even the last one they came out with, the one that was had Tempest on it. I forget what that album was called, but I even remember like their first one. Well, there's Undertow, and then I think before that they had that live one, and it's just all of it really great stuff and great musicians.
We have decided to break this into 2 videos, so we'll call it for right now. Why don't you join us again for the top 10? See ya!